Welcome to Mystery Unfolds, where every story keeps you guessing and every twist leaves you surprised. Get ready for thrilling tales that will take you to the edge of the unknown. Let's begin. The Stranger in Apartment 12. Episode 1. A new neighbor moves in. It was an unusually quiet evening in Meadowview Apartments, the kind of evening where the sound of a pin dropping could echo through the air. Arun and Priya had just finished their dinner, but the peacefulness felt unsettling, like something was waiting to happen. Arun had always liked the quiet, but tonight the silence felt too thick, too heavy. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the apartment complex in an orange-pink glow, Arun glanced out the window and saw a large moving truck parked in front of apartment 12, the one directly across from theirs. He turned to Priya. "There's someone moving in next door," he said. Priya looked up from her book. "What time is it?" "Late for someone to be moving in, isn't it?" Arun shrugged. "Maybe they're just getting settled. You know how it is with new neighbors." Still something felt off. The man unloading the truck didn't seem to have much in the way of emotion. His movements were precise, calculated. He didn't seem to hurry, but he didn't take his time either. He was the picture of cold efficiency. His face was difficult to read. His features pale, almost ghostly under the fading sunlight. His eyes were hidden by dark sunglasses, and he didn't glance up as Arun observed him from his window. Priya, who had been watching the same scene, muttered under her breath, "He looks odd." Arun didn't say anything, but the feeling of unease lodged itself firmly in his gut. The man carried box after box into the apartment, each one looking heavier than the last, though Arun couldn't help but wonder what was inside. That night, after they went to bed, a soft sound broke the stillness of the apartment, a faint dragging noise. Arun furrowed his brow, sitting up in bed. "Did you hear that?" he whispered to Priya. "What?" she asked, barely lifting her head from the pillow. "The dragging sound, coming from next door." Priya didn't respond, but Arun could see her eyes wide in the moonlight, reflecting the same unease he felt. He got up slowly, heart pounding as he crept out into the hallway. The noise was faint, but it was unmistakable, a dragging sound that seemed to come from apartment 12. He stood there listening for a moment, but the noise stopped. His breath caught in his throat, but he told himself it was nothing. Had to be nothing. Maybe it was just furniture being moved around. He couldn't help but wonder, though, why so late? He returned to his apartment, but sleep wouldn't come. The dragging noise had invaded his thoughts, turning the quiet of the night into something far more sinister. Episode 2, The Stranger's Eyes. The following morning, Arun couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Priya had gone out for groceries, and he was alone when the sound came again. The dragging, muffled and slow. It was coming from apartment 12 again. This time, Arun didn't hesitate. He grabbed his jacket, his heart pounding in his chest. There was something unnerving about that sound, something he couldn't quite place. When he reached the door to apartment 12, he hesitated for just a moment. He couldn't explain why, but he felt like he was intruding. Still, he gathered the courage to knock. The door opened just slightly, revealing the man from the night before. His expression remained blank, but there was an edge to his gaze now, something cold and unwelcoming. "Can I help you?" he asked in a low voice, almost monotone. Arun, taken aback by the man's icy demeanor, cleared his throat. I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Arun, from apartment 7. The man looked at him for a long moment, the silence between them growing thicker. Finally he nodded. Ryan." His voice was quiet, almost as if he didn't want to be heard. "I just wanted to say welcome." "Hope the move went smoothly," Arun said, trying to keep things friendly. Ryan didn't respond immediately. Instead, his eyes seemed to flicker toward Arun's hand, where the faintest tremor had begun to show. Arun quickly hid it in his pocket, but Ryan noticed. "I'll get settled soon." "No need to worry," Ryan said, his voice flat. His words almost sounded rehearsed. Before Arun could say anything else, Ryan shut the door, leaving Arun standing in the hallway, more unsettled than ever. Later that day, Arun saw Ryan again, this time through the window. He was moving about his apartment in an erratic manner, throwing items into boxes and quickly shuffling around the room. It was as if he were in a hurry to hide something, but there was no reason for that urgency. The behavior only made Arun more curious, but there was a nagging feeling at the back of his mind that told him to leave it alone. That night, just as Arun was preparing for bed, he heard the sound again, the dragging, slower than before, almost deliberate. Arun shot up from his bed. His heart was pounding now, his breath shallow. The noises were real. They weren't just his imagination. Before he could stop himself, he found himself standing at Ryan's door again. Episode 3. Unsettling Discoveries. Arun knocked firmly, his hand trembling. This time, there was no hesitation when Ryan opened the door. His face, if possible, was even more unreadable than before. "What do you need, Arun?" Ryan asked, his voice a low growl, as if he were irritated by the interruption. I just wanted to check on you. I keep hearing this noise coming from your apartment, and I thought maybe you needed help." Arun stammered, suddenly unsure of what to say. Ryan's gaze softened just a little before hardening again. "I'm fine. Just my things. Moving in's always a hassle." But Arun wasn't convinced. Something in Ryan's voice didn't sit right. The way he had spoken, the sharpness in his tone, made Arun feel like he was being dismissed. "Are you sure?" Arun pressed. "I heard." "Please," Ryan cut him off sharply, his tone colder now. "I'm fine. Just leave it alone." Arun stood frozen for a moment, staring at the man's expressionless face. For a second, he wondered if Ryan wasn't just a little too calm. But the brief flicker of something, an emotion maybe, passed through his eyes. Arun could have sworn he saw fear, or perhaps guilt, lurking in them. Arun took a step back. "Okay, I'll leave you to it." As he walked back to his apartment, a strange sensation settled in his chest. Ryan's behavior was odd, but the look in his eyes. No, that wasn't something Arun could ignore. Later that evening, as Arun and Priya settled into bed, the sound came again. Only this time, it wasn't the dragging noise. It was something worse, a muffled thud, followed by a harsh scraping sound, like something being dragged against the wall, scratching and tearing. Priya was still asleep beside him, but Arun couldn't lie still anymore. The noises were growing louder, more aggressive, as if someone was being tortured or trapped in that apartment. The more he thought about it, the more he realized. Ryan wasn't just moving furniture. He was hiding something, and Arun was determined to find out what. He made up his mind. The next day, Arun decided to confront Ryan one last time. Only this time he wouldn't ask questions. He would get answers. Episode 4. The Hidden Room. Arun waited until the evening to knock on Ryan's door again. His heart raced in his chest, louder now with the weight of what he might discover. This wasn't just curiosity anymore, it was survival. Ryan opened the door, but this time, there was a different look in his eyes. The coldness was gone, replaced with something darker, something terrifying. "What do you want?" Ryan asked in a low voice, but this time his tone wasn't dismissive. It was threatening. Arun's stomach dropped. "I know something's going on in your apartment. I've heard the noises. I don't know what you're hiding, but I'm going to find out." Ryan stared at him for a long moment, his hands gripping the doorframe so tightly his knuckles turned white. Then, in an unexpected movement, he stepped aside. "You want to know the truth," Ryan said, his voice low and trembling. "Then come inside. But be prepared. Once you know, there's no going back." Arun swallowed hard but stepped over the threshold. Inside, the apartment was dark, the only light coming from a single lamp in the corner. The air was thick with a musty, sour scent. Ryan led him down the hallway toward a door Arun had never noticed before. It was partially open, but something about it made Arun uneasy. It felt like a hidden space, one meant to remain undisturbed. Ryan pushed the door open, revealing a small, windowless room. And in the center of the room, there was a chair. A chair that looked like it had been used recently, as though someone had been strapped to it. Arun's heart pounded as he looked around the room, his gaze landing on the floor, where dark stains had soaked into the carpet. Stains that looked disturbingly like blood. Ryan spoke again, his voice trembling. I didn't want this. I never wanted this. But they wouldn't leave me alone. Arun's eyes widened as realization began to dawn on him. What did you do? Who did you trap in here? Ryan swallowed hard, tears brimming in his eyes. I didn't trap anyone. They came for me. And now they want you too. Before Arun could react, the door slammed shut behind him, locking them both inside the small room. Episode 5. The Hidden Truth. The door slammed shut with an ear-splitting bang, and Arun froze. He could feel the sudden drop in temperature around him. The room, small and windowless, seemed to close in on him, suffocating him. Ryan was standing across the room, his back pressed against the door, his eyes wide with panic. What the hell is going on, Ryan? Arun demanded, trying to keep his voice steady despite the rising terror in his chest. Ryan looked at him, his face pale, drenched in sweat, his hands trembling. They won't stop. They can't stop. Not until they get what they want. And now you're here. They're going to come for you too. Arun's mind raced. Who are they? What are you talking about? He pressed, stepping closer to Ryan. The air felt heavy, oppressive, as though the very walls were closing in on him. Ryan took a deep breath and wiped his forehead. I never wanted this. I was just a regular guy living my life. But they found me. They knew what I had. What I was. What are you talking about? Arun asked again, his patience wearing thin. He wasn't sure if Ryan was just insane or if something far more sinister was at play here. Ryan's eyes flickered to the corner of the room where the chair sat, and Arun followed his gaze. The chair was old, beaten up, its cushions frayed and worn. It seemed out of place in the otherwise empty room. But it wasn't the chair that made Arun's skin crawl. It was the dark, splotchy stains on the floor around it. Ryan took a step back, a distant, haunted look in his eyes. I thought it was over. I thought I'd gotten away from them. But they're still coming. They've been watching me, watching us. And they want something from me. Something they won't stop until they get. Arun swallowed hard, trying to piece together the fragmented words. What is it they want from you, Ryan? What's in this room? Ryan flinched. You don't understand. I never meant for this to happen. But they're not going to stop. They'll use you to get to me. You have to leave. You have to get out of here before it's too late. Before Arun could say anything, the lights in the room flickered, casting long, erratic shadows against the walls. The sound of a soft tapping filled the air, like fingers drumming lightly against the floor, coming from the corner of the room. Arun's heart raced. The noise didn't stop. Instead, it grew louder, more rhythmic, almost deliberate. He turned toward the sound, his pulse quickening. Something was moving in the darkness. Do you hear that? Arun whispered, his voice barely above a breath. Ryan's face went even paler. It's too late. They found us. The air in the room seemed to thicken, and the temperature dropped even further, making Arun's breath visible in front of him. The tapping sound was now joined by the sound of scraping, like nails on wood, scraping across the floor, getting closer. The walls seemed to press in around them, the room narrowing, the shadows growing longer. Ryan, Arun began, but before he could finish, the scraping noise stopped. In the heavy silence that followed, a whisper rose from the shadows, soft, cold and guttural, as if spoken by someone or something that wasn't entirely human. I see you. Ryan's eyes widened in terror. Oh, not now, he cried, stumbling back, his hand clutching his chest as if to steady himself. You have to leave. But before Arun could react, the shadows seemed to lunge, swirling toward Ryan like dark smoke, wrapping around him in an instant. Arun gasped, taking a step back, feeling the coldness invade his body, making it hard to breathe. Ryan screamed, sharp and full of pure panic, as he was dragged back toward the chair. The chair creaked under the weight of something unseen, something pulling at Ryan with inhuman strength. "No!" Arun shouted, rushing toward Ryan, but his body wouldn't move. It felt like he was rooted to the spot, as if the room itself was holding him captive. His heart thudded painfully in his chest as he watched Ryan struggle, his face twisted in fear. The whispers grew louder now, a chorus of voices all around them, echoing in the darkness. Arun couldn't understand the words. They sounded like an ancient language, like something forbidden. Ryan's screams died out, and just as quickly as the shadows had appeared, they retreated, vanishing into the dark corners of the room. The silence that followed was deafening. Arun was left standing, his breath shallow, his body trembling. He felt as if he had just witnessed something impossibly terrifying, something no one should ever have to see. Ryan was gone. And whatever had taken him, it wasn't finished. It would come for Arun next. Episode 6. The chase begins. Arun stumbled backward, his back hitting the wall. He was panting, trying to catch his breath, his mind racing. The darkness in the room seemed to have a life of its own now, pulsing with a strange, unnatural energy. The shadows that had swallowed Ryan seemed to be reaching for him, but he didn't wait around to find out. With a burst of panic, Arun ran for the door, but it was locked, slammed shut from the outside. He was trapped. "No!" Arun shouted, his hands slamming against the door, but it didn't budge. The room seemed to tighten around him, the air thick with the scent of dampness and decay. He could feel his heart pounding in his throat, his fear rising to a crescendo. The whispers came again, soft at first, like an echo in his ears, but soon growing louder, filling his mind with a chorus of voices. They spoke of terrible things, things Arun couldn't understand. His pulse was racing, his head spinning. "You are next." The voice was low, deep, and menacing, like a cold wind blowing through the cracks of the room. Arun spun around, looking for any way out, but there was nothing, only the suffocating darkness and the whispers that threatened to swallow him whole. Suddenly the door opened. It wasn't Ryan. Arun's eyes widened as a figure stood in the doorway, its face obscured by the shadows. The figure stepped forward, its eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. "You don't belong here," the figure said, its voice smooth and cold as ice. Arun tried to speak, but his throat was dry. His words stuck somewhere between his lips and his mind. The figure advanced, and Arun backed away, his heart racing, but there was nowhere to run. The room seemed to stretch, the walls closing in tighter with every breath. The figure reached out, and Arun could feel the temperature drop, the air becoming thick and suffocating. You should never have come to apartment 12. Thanks for watching Mystery Unfolds. If you enjoyed the mystery, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new story. See you in the next one.